Hello. Today we will be discussing why it should be okay for Christians to have a tattoo that glorifies God. Now, I don't know how many times in my past I've been stopped by a random person or a friend or a family member and notices my tattoo. And they compliment me on it, and then sooner or later they realize that I am a Christ follower, that I am a Christian. And they soon question why it is that I got a tattoo if it says in His Word that we should not get tattoos. Now, the verse that we'll be looking at that most of the time those people bring forth to my attention is out of Leviticus 19:28. It says, "Do not cut your bodies for the dead or put tattoo marks on yourselves. I am the Lord." And that's what it says, black and white, and it seems very clear cut, no argument needed. But in order to truly understand what God was meaning and in the context of this passage, we have to look at the when, where, and why this passage was written. All three of those things will be examined as we move along today. Now, according to gotquestions.org, these words in Leviticus were written in 1440 BC through 1400 BC, roughly. And according to Charles Swindoll off of insight.org, he said that these words were most likely spoken to Moses by God himself on or near Mount Sinai. Mount Sinai is very important in understanding the true meaning behind Leviticus in Leviticus 19:28 specifically because this is right after the Israelites, God's chosen people, were escaped from Egypt. Now, according to GotQuestions.org as well, they said that the Israelites were held captive in Egypt for 400 years. That's huge because after staying in a situation for 400 years, you're going to get accustomed to their situations, their lifestyle, the Egyptian lifestyle. Now, as they left Egypt, God is trying to tell Moses and the rest of his people, the Israelites, what to do to separate yourselves from the world, especially Egypt, the place that you just came from, that you've been in for 400 years. Generations of people have lived there for 400 years, and they've gotten immersed and engulfed in the Egyptian culture. With that being said, we have to do some research into the Egyptian lifestyle when this was written and at the time that they were held captive there. An article that I found from Cassandra Franklin Barbosa in the National Geographic. She wrote an article according to the history of tattoos. Now, it's interesting to find out that Egyptians were found with tattoos all the way back to 2000 BC. So well before the Israelites were even held captive there. That is hugely important because also in this article, Cassandra is quote saying that a lot of the Egyptians were found with a image of Bes. Now, Bes is an Egyptian god that many people worshipped during the time the Israelites were there. Now, Bes is a god of fertility, according to the National Geographic, and a god of rivalry. Now, according to EgyptiansGods.org, they also say that Bes is the god of protection. The god of protection is very important to understand because we have to remember that the Israelites were just taken out of Egypt, where they had been slaves for years and years and years. And this god Bes is supposedly the god of protection, the god that protects the people. And God is trying to tell them, especially in Leviticus, that I am the Lord. I am your God. Not Bes, not any idol that you put in front of me. I am your God. In fact, in my Bible, I read in just Leviticus 19, it is quoted saying, God saying, I am the Lord 16 times. He's obviously stressing the importance to the people then and us as well, that he is the Lord and he is to be worshipped only. Now, why do we not still follow Leviticus's laws? That's a huge question that we also must answer as well. And that is part of the why. Now, Matt Slick, the president and founder of Christian Apologetics and Research Ministry, is quoted saying, We do not follow all the Levitical laws in the Old Testament because some of those laws were intended only for Israel, while others were for everyone. So he's saying when you study Leviticus, you have to realize who God is talking to in each chapter. And it just so happens in Leviticus 19, he is specifically talking to the Israelites, not the whole society, but only to the Israelites in that time. And you can check this out in Leviticus 19:2. It says those exact things, that he's talking to the Israelites. So according to Matt Slick, we have to realize who he's talking to, and it really depends on who he's talking to as far as what we really follow today. For example, Leviticus 19:27, it is quoted that God told Moses to tell the Israelites to not trim their beards or cut their hair. And I'm assuming that most of us do that on a day-to-day basis. So that alone is a huge key factor in remembering why Leviticus 19:28 should not be taken as a motive to today why we shouldn't have tattoos. It doesn't make any sense. Otherwise, we also wouldn't cut our hair or trim our beards. Now, to go along with that, Accounting the Old Testament, a Christian survey book by Bill Arnold and Brian Bayer, they also say that some of the laws we will still follow today, but a lot of them should be broad and only used in the context of which they are written, such as Leviticus 19:28. They say that some of those laws just do not apply to us today, just like getting tattoos on our arms. Now, I believe personally that God only really is concerned today about what is in the inside of us. Is Jesus living inside of us? And if he does, then our outside should match that as well. And if we choose to get a tattoo as a believer, we are to glorify God through it and only glorify him. So as a Christian, I believe that we can get tattoos. With all this being understood, we can get tattoos if and only if we are glorifying God through them, as it says in 1 Corinthians 10:31. Thank you. And here are my speaking notes.